今天您将收看的是
华东师范大学设计学院与乌达克文化基金会共同举办了一场媒体工作营，让更多的人了解乌达克在上海近现代建筑史上留下的辉煌篇章。
大家好，观众朋友们，您现在看到的是今晚我们聊建筑。乌达克是在上海最为传奇的外国建筑师之一，他书写了上海近代建筑史的辉煌篇章。2019年3月，上海华东师范大学设计学院举办了一场以乌达克建筑为主题的工作营。那在今天的节目当中呢，我们就邀请到了这个工作营的特邀嘉宾，同时呢也是乌达克的后人切蒂女士，和我们一起来分享乌达克在上海的那段生活印记。
2019年3月，华东师范大学设计学院与乌达克文化基金会共同举办了一场以在校师生为主要对象的媒体工作营。在乌达克曾侄孙女维拉格切蒂的引导下，走进100年之后依然伫立在上海这座城市中的出自乌达克之手的优秀建筑。工作营的最终成果将在匈牙利布达佩斯建筑中心进行展览，让更多的人了解乌达克在上海近现代建筑史上留下的辉煌篇章。
Hudak is so famous here. In Hungary, not young people, nobody knows about how famous Hudak in Shanghai. So that's one of my big tasks, to bring back from here to Budapest the news like, hey, we have a hero in Shanghai, we have a star in Shanghai, you should know about and learn about how he becomes such an important architect. For this reason, we made the projects with the East China Normal University and also with the Budapest-based university, the Technical University, and with the Moholy-Nagy Art and Design University. So, yes, I'm trying to make this cooperation with universities based on Hudak in Shanghai. It's a workshop that is about mainly Hudak buildings and about Shanghai a little bit, and about how the young people are understanding Hudak buildings in Shanghai in our days. And it's also about design, because this design university has a very strong education about design history as well, and they want to know more about what is this Hudak buildings, and I am helping them to understand who was László Hudak and how he was thinking about making these buildings. And it's also the goal of this workshop to bring the result of the workshop to Budapest and show to Budapest citizens how is our days Shanghai citizens are looking at Hudak.
拉斯洛·胡杰茨即乌达克，1893年1月8日生于匈牙利的一个富裕家庭。其父是当时有名的建筑营造师。作为家中长子，乌达克9岁就在父亲的建筑工地上参与实践工作。1910年进入布达佩斯理工学院建筑系攻读学位，并顺利毕业。不幸的是，21岁时战争爆发，乌达克被招募进军队并送往前线。原本一片光明的职业生涯瞬间化作泡影。
Hudak's architecture was mainly influenced by his studies in Budapest, because he studied in Budapest the Technical University, and in the Technical University they gave a very strong base knowledge of the classical styles. And his father was rather influencing him in his ethical thinking of the work, of the architecture, that it has to serve people and it has to be very good designed to stand for a long time and to be useful for people. This is more that comes from his father's thinking. His father was also very much hoping that his son will take over his business in Beszterczebánya. So as the firstborn son of the family, he had to do his best to become a good architect.
1918年，拉斯洛·胡杰茨从西伯利亚战俘营里逃出，几经辗转到达了千里之外的上海。从此，他改名为拉斯洛·乌达克，恢复了祖父的姓氏拼写，因为这样更朗朗上口，容易让人记住。起初，他只是想着尽快找一份工作，好攒到足够的路费，早日回家。而他作为建筑师的技能，在当时上海这座急速发展的城市里，正好派上了用场。
He had a very difficult time because he escaped from Russia as a prisoner of war. So he not only didn't have any friend, but he didn't have any money neither. So he really had to start to find a job, and luckily, because he was so motivated to find an existence in Shanghai, he could get a job as a draftsman in the office of Curry, R.A. Curry, American architect, and he started to work there, and in very short time it turned out that his talent and his positive thinking of this profession helped him becoming a partner of the R.A. Curry's office.
乌达克在上海度过了29个春秋，期间建成了不下50个项目，单体超过100幢建筑。中西女塾景莲堂、诺曼底公寓、刘吉生住宅。他的作品跨度很大，包含了宽广的建筑意象。然而，在这么多建筑中，几乎没有重复出现的母题，种类之全，质量之高，在世界建筑史上也并不多见。
I don't know for sure why was the design sometimes so modern and sometimes so classical, but I assume because the Shanghai clients, the Chinese ones, were more open to the modern style and open to this trying new solutions than those clients that were coming from the concessions like Americans, Britons, French. They were more willing to see in their houses the style of their home countries, France, Great Britain, America. So I think because he was always serving what clients wanted, for Chinese clients, they had more possibility to go on more progressive solutions. He learned to be creative. He was drawing when he was a kid already. We have these kid drawings that he drew a fantasy city, a fantasy town hall. So he was very much always fantasizing about architecture. And next to that, when he was in the university years, he went already for study trips. It was a tradition that if you study architecture, at the end you go for study trips. And during his study trips, he made drawings and photographs. And also we know that he kept this habit of making sketches of buildings and details of streets for all his life. And all these sketchbooks are available in the Canadian University, the Victoria University archives. And my biggest dream, to make an exhibition where we can show the Budapest archives together with these Canadian archives and really give the big picture of how he was becoming such a good architect.
上世纪30年代初，乌达克的职业生涯迎来了巅峰期。他主持建造了上海的首座摩天大楼——国际饭店。乌达克成功解决了上海土质松软、建筑沉降的问题。一幢22层的大酒店，高约91.4米的摩天大楼拔地而起，改变了城市的天际线。在当时，国际饭店的楼顶不仅标志着上海的最高点，同时也表明这座城市正在以令人震惊的速度去征服新的荣耀巅峰。
For him, technically, this is a big task to stand the building this high in this soil-mad ground of Shanghai, and he won the competition of this project because he brought an idea of making a very deep foundation of the building. They put 33-meter long pine trees in the ground, and then on the pine trees they put some very good metal layers, and that could make the whole construction stable, and it's still standing. So he could solve the problem with a solution that was later on implemented in new projects. So he was again breaking the rules and trying to do something new.
具有强烈时代感的大光明大戏院于1933年4月开幕。乌达克的这一新潮设计受到建筑界的广泛关注，并由此奠定了他作为上海最有影响的现代建筑师的地位。戏院的内部安装了世界一流的音响系统和空调设备，这些在当时都是绝无仅有的。
absolutely. In this area, they were unique techniques and unique designs, but he also was very much using the Western design that he learned by his travels, because he was traveling to Europe and America not long before this project. So he was fast learning the new solutions and bringing here. So he was a kind of bridge between the West and East culture, because he also implemented Chinese motifs in Grand Theater, for example. You can see it on the doors, decoration, and a lot of elements has this Chinese traditional decoration style. And what was he also using this 40-meter high lighting tower, which was for this time the biggest of the whole area. So he was very much trying again a new adventurous technique, and it was approved by this age because it's still there and the people still remember this building if they come to Shanghai. He didn't have design style, we can say it, because he could design in any style. His aim wasn't to become an architect that can be recognized by the style. He was more concentrating on the clients and the functionalities of the buildings, and that was one of his saying, what we could read in his letters, that the inner function has to be always giving the outer design of the buildings, and that should direct the final result, and not only the look is important.
绿房子梧桐纹住宅，20世纪30年代的远东第一住宅。乌达克曾向梧桐纹保证，此设计100年都不会过时。如今，时间已经证明了乌达克建筑的经典性。绿房子的室内空间是根据拥有现代生活方式的中国大家庭的需求来进行平面布局，按照家庭成员的不同社会身份，规划了界定清晰的私人空间。虽然吴宅已小有变动，但它仍被视为中国现代建筑的杰作之一。
I agree, this is one of his masterpieces, fully. Visiting again was a great feeling to be in this space, and you could feel that the life living there was a very nicely division between the inner life and the outer terrace life. I think it's a very nicely designed and proportioned building. But he actually could put a lot of work in this building because there was no other job for his architecture office. So he was working on that, I think, like few years, and only making better and better. And luckily, his commission giver, Mr. Wu, was very rich. So he could make really the most luxury villa of the city for him. Again, the best and the first private villa with an elevator inside. So he could put a lot of new ideas and new concepts in this building. And as a result, you have a very nice guidebook of what is making a modern design with a little bit of Art Deco effects in the details. The greenhouse still has this atmosphere that you feel like, wow, that's how they were living here. Although it's an office space now, you have the feeling that that's how they were living here, their life. It was a very happy life.
接下来您将收看的是
乌达克一生漂泊，却与上海紧密相连。他的才能与抱负在最好的年华得以施展，他的命运不可思议地契合了一座城市的发展脉搏。乌达克与上海是真正的天作之合。除了商业项目之外，乌达克也参与设计了一些为灵魂而造的建筑。位于城市西郊的西烟堂是上海唯一一座采用拜占庭风格穹顶的天主教堂。教堂外缘是牧区，总占地面积达4.96万平方米。西烟堂的外形敦厚，墙面用水泥砂浆做淡黄色鱼鳞纹粉饰，圆顶外表是以铜板，未留出窗洞折成花瓣形，年久氧化后表面呈蓝绿色。主体西北角设独立钟塔一座，高近20米，在各个角度都能形成独特的景观。 礼拜堂内部四角为4根树柱，上呈翻拱和穹顶，穹隆底部密排16个尖券窗洞，光线漫入时，穹顶仿若漂浮在空中。
This cupola, as we've seen yesterday, was a very important part of the building because it gives this very nice light of the interior, and he had a good knowledge of how to use the exterior light and put in the interior light, and I think with this Byzantine cupola he gained again a nice solution for giving a spiritual feeling to this space of a church. That's how I found myself, and indeed it was a nice proportion in total, the whole building.
位于西藏路汉口路转角处的穆恩堂是乌达克的又一代表作，其外立面为美国学院哥特式风格，外墙是以深红色砖面，且表面凹凸不平，形成独特的肌理。室内2层高的大堂，空间开阔，顶部做肋骨拱顶形式，靠外廊2侧尖券窗是以黄色玻璃彩绘，即使在阴天也像有微弱的阳光照射，营造出圣洁庄重的氛围。
Hudak's father wasn't alive anymore when he was designing this church, so we know much less about his architecture thinking and projects because he was always sharing with his father his ideas and his process in Shanghai as an architect. But as visiting the building, I had the feeling that he really tried to make something indeed a good combination of this traditional style serving the needs of a very modern church life that the Americans of Shanghai wanted to live in this church and the surrounding buildings. It's a very nice example of neo-Gothic style with this Britain proportions and Britain effects. As a visitor of the building, I had the feeling that it was a very nice surrounding for having a church life for people of the city, and that is also was well divided for having public event and spiritual event. So it's a nice combination, and usually people don't think about this building that it's not only serving a spiritual life but serving a church life in general as well. So I like the space that it is in the middle of the very busy city and it still has a quiet environment.
乌达克留下了大量的作品，这些建筑的外观包括古典主义、折中主义、装饰主义、表现主义、现代主义等不同风格。多变的设计风格和诸多的不确定性，也为后人研究乌达克提出了难点和疑点。
There are fake Hudaks. They say that it's a Hudak building, but it's not. I don't know exactly, but there is some classical styled hotel that they say about themselves that they are Hudak. So, yeah, and there is also argues like while he was working at Eric Curry's office, he made a lot of design and he put it in a photo album. And this photo album he sent to Budapest. And we, as a research and foundation source, we think those buildings are Hudak. But the Chinese researchers don't agree. So one of this discussion with the Shanghai-based researchers is the Museum of Applied Arts. It's a nice old neoclassic building in Fenyanglu, and they have this very well-kept design from the age when it was built. And I really think it's a fantastic possibility that we have still the original windows, a lot of details. Even they have the lake in the garden as it was designed. And we have nice archive photographs. But Chinese researchers says that this is a building that was built by Eric Curry. And they don't want to give the name to this building that it's Hudak design because there is no document with the signature of him. So there is always this discussion, what do you really think it's a design by an architect? If he signs a document or if he puts in his portfolio and speaks about and writes letters about. So this is a question still in the situation, in this subject.
乌达克一生漂泊，却与上海紧密相连。他的才能与抱负在最好的年华得以施展，他的命运不可思议地契合了一座城市的发展脉搏。乌达克与上海是真正的天作之合。
I fully agree that Hudak name is related to Shanghai, and he always was aware of that possibility that he could become such a great architect only in such a big and developing city. But he never felt home anywhere himself, not in Shanghai neither, because the history changed his whole life and by the 20th century history, he lost his home, and he could always hope that once he will get back to his city, but it never happened. We have architect in the family. I have also uncle who was a famous architect, and Hudak was trying to convince him to come over and work with him in Shanghai and later in America. So he was always keeping a good eye on the family and tried to convince different family members become an architect. And there are architects in the family. I am not an architect, but like last 10 years ago, when we found these fantastic archives in Budapest in my aunt's house, it was 10 years ago that suddenly everything fell on us. Then I started to get deep in this architecture history of Shanghai, and I must say that it's an amazing story. Everybody should know a lot about.
通过这次工作营，让我们更进一步地了解到乌达克创造了上海近代建筑的特殊标志，同时呢，也对后世产生了深远的影响。好，以上就是我们今天节目的全部内容，非常感谢各位的收看，让我们下一次再见。
下期您将收看的是，
今晚我们看电影，表演艺术家梁波罗老师做客今晚，讲述他的艺术感悟。